I want to talk to you about values because you were in a really unique situation where you were married and then you decided to separate from your former husband. Now you are together with someone you really love and truly admire. I wanted to talk to you about the difference in the values between the relationships. And did you even look at the relationship values in the beginning when you were maybe younger with the first marriage? And then how you look at your relationship now as a more value orientated?
Hindsight is 2020, right? When I look back, I think I was 24 when I met my husband, my first husband, and my dad had just passed away. And being Filipino, there is this expectation, right, about kids and getting married. And so as soon as you hit like 18, it's like, when are you gonna have kids? When are you gonna get married? So there was this sort of time, the women listening to this know what I'm talking about. There's this like this time, right? The time, the sands of time where we're like, okay, we need to get pregnant, I need to do this by this date. And when I really think about it, I think I said yes because I was afraid that no one else would ask me. I was afraid of being alone for the rest of my life. And on paper, it was great. Good job, check. Handsome, check. Had all his teeth. The things that I thought were important in a marriage, he had. So I was like, okay, how bad can this be? I think I had some really specific expectations based on what I saw from my parents about what a marriage should look like. And so, yeah, I think at that point, when I look back, what I see there is that I had expectations that this person clearly could not fulfill. And there was so much frustration in trying to have someone be something that they just innately were not. He tried, but it was like pulling teeth, But right before we got separated, I did this course. It's called Landmark. And I really got clear about, wow, I have not taken responsibility for my part in this. Because of course, when you're frustrated, you start saying things you shouldn't be saying and being mean and, just withholding love, punishing that person in some sort of fashion, right? Shutting down emotionally, numbing out, just all those things that we do to kind of push people away. And so when that epiphany came to me, I sat him down and I said, listen, I am so sorry. I have been judging you. I have been making you wrong. I've had such high expectations of you. And I realized that, you know what? You're great the way you are. There's nothing wrong with you. It just doesn't work for me. Rather than where I was coming from was like, you're wrong, you're a jerk, you're selfish, you're this. And really was like, wow, I made all of that up. And the impact of that, right, is that we are where we are. And so it was great because it was such a powerful conversation for me to just be like, you are whole and complete and perfect just the way you are. And so am I. And this is just not going to work. To take it another step further, being Catholic and going through this process, it was the moment in my life where I finally said, I am going to stop people pleasing. I'm going to stop trying to look good for people. And I'm just going to do what makes me happy. Because there was this point where I was like, okay, I could stay. I could, kind of maybe get my own bedroom or, I was trying to think of other things I could do rather than getting divorced. But I was like, that has no integrity. And I deserve better. I deserve to have what it is that I want. The kind of relationship that I've been dreaming of my whole life is out there. I know it is. And I just have to love myself enough to be willing to stand for that. 3 months later, I met my husband. It was in the most random way. My husband actually lived 4,000 kilometers away from me when we met, and everything just kind of fell into place. And here we are, 17 years later, and we are more in love now than we were in our first year together. And it's because we have been such a team going through things like COVID, being sick, financial ups and downs, me going from making tons of money to like now starting my own business. We've just been supporting each other throughout the whole thing. And so people think, oh yeah, being married after a while, things just kind of die. Well, I say, well, it doesn't have to if you're willing to do the work. And if you let go of the thought that that's how marriage should be, where I'm saying, no, marriage does not have to be that way. We still kiss each other 20 times a day, tell each other we love each other 20 times a day. We're playful, we laugh. We still do the things that we did 17 years ago. But it's because we're both committed to being a team. Our communication is fantastic. And we really look at ourselves as, a friendship first. And that is, I think a lot of couples don't have that, whether they got pregnant really quickly after getting married, or, they just, the whole going from dating to becoming parents happened really, really, really fast. And they didn't have time to develop that. So their life or their marriage is kind of like a house of cards. Anything passes by, everything falls apart. And so that's the work I do, is I really help them to create those really strong foundations so that when they do hit those bumps in the road, that they don't look at each other and start pointing the finger. It's like, no, 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 I got your back. I got you. We're going to do this together.
You have a great mindset when it comes to just looking at, you came from a situation that wasn't ideal, but then you said, let me focus on what is ideal, and to look at the things and to say, okay, I want something different, right? Sometimes that different can be a different person, right? Sometimes it could be the person making some changes, right? But you notice that he was just stuck in his ways. And some people are stuck in their ways. And I always
Yeah.
say a man can change. He will change for the right woman, but sometimes, especially at the time in his life, will he change, right? And most men are not going to change until like 28, early
Yeah.
30s, right? It's just
Yeah.
the mindset of men is different than mindset of women, especially
Yeah.
at, in their early 20s or mid 20s.
Yeah. I
So,
think also too,
mhm,
I thought I wanted someone like me. Like, okay, I want
oh,
someone who's outgoing and like kind of an alpha energy. Oh my
mhm,
gosh, we were like butting heads like crazy. My husband now is like polar opposite. He is quiet and shy, and he's sweet, and he's very soft-hearted, and has a very strong feminine energy, very intuitive. So when I introduced my husband, Michael, to the rest of my family, and I had been dating as a certain kind of type of man up
mhm.
until that point, my family's like, I don't get it. I was like, yeah, I get it. I get that you don't get it, because I've never dated someone like this, because I thought I knew what I wanted. And then when I met my husband, I was like, no, this is what I want.
Yeah, this is a great way to look at it too, because if you have two alpha energies, just two energies that are very strong and no one's willing to budge, it's always going to be that argument. It's just like, all right. And then at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, I give up, right? Because it's like, I'm not budging, you're not budging. It's always going to be a battle. It's never a ceasefire. It's always a battle.
Yes.
And most people don't want to fight their whole life. Most people want to have peace. They want to find some balance, and they want to be happy. Like to your point, they want to be happy. They want to live a life that is fulfilled, whether that be with the perfect person or with someone who they think is ideal, right? And that's what happens initially, right? When people are finding their first partners, this person looks great on paper. They check all the marks, right? They're tall, they're handsome, they have all their teeth, they are somewhat kind or whatever. So we can go down the list of things that, like I'm seeing that other people have, but just because what other people have doesn't mean you have to have it. Because if I look at my parents' relationship, it's the total opposite of what you have. My dad was in and out of the picture, he was doing his own thing, and my mom could have easily said, I'm done with this, right? This is too much work. This is crazy. But again, my mom is Catholic too. She has traditional roots from her mother to her grandmother to her great grandparents. All of that right there was instilled into her. Now we
Mm,
have broken households, right? So we have just parents co parenting or single parent households.
yeah.
So there's not really that foundation that we can see anymore. Similar to
Yeah.
how you were able to look at your relationship with your parents, you saw love and affection and care and teamwork, but you weren't
Yeah.
getting that in your first marriage. But then in your second
Yeah.
marriage, like, that's what you were looking for. And
Yeah.
it just took a different type of person. So,
Yeah.
so I wanted to talk to you about when someone is really looking at marriage now, what are going to be the appropriate things to look at today rather than just our ideals?
Right. I think, first of all, we need to get really clear about what we want. Because, so for example, I have this client who they were about to get divorced. And I said, what are your non negotiables? Because I think that's a conversation that we don't really have. Because especially when you're in love, we don't want to rock the boat, right? So we just focus on all the positive stuff. But I think what's been missing in a lot of these relationships and why they don't work out is you have to be willing to have those hard conversations. And so one of these things that this couple was dealing with is, he said, one of my non-negotiables is that we need to have sex at least 4 times a week. And for her, she was like, what? Or what was another thing of his? She's not allowed to drink. He's allowed to drink, but she's not allowed to drink. So one of his non-negotiables is you are not allowed to drink. So I said to him, I said, if this was such a big deal to you and a deal breaker, like you would actually consider divorcing her because of this, why didn't you say this in the beginning before you got married? Why was this conversation not had? Same thing, again, going back to sex, I meet couples who one is like extremely high, love language is physical touch. And the other person is like, you know what? I could go years without sex and I'm okay with that. And I'm like, how is this going to work? And how did you guys even get together? And did you even talk about this? So I think it's about talking about expectations. Here's what I think marriage looks like. So for my ex-husband, to him, a wife is someone who cooks, who cleans, who has babies, and he just goes out and does the work and comes home and brings home the bacon. And then he plops his butt on the couch for the rest of the night. Maybe goes into his workshop. I'm like, no, I want that. Like my husband, he's the dinner guy. That's his thing. He loves to clean and he's very particular about how he cleans. I love that. My ex couldn't even like lift a finger to take out the garbage, And so those were things for me that were values that I at the time didn't know I had. But values for me, I got really clear. It's like, oh, my love language is service. Okay, I need someone who's willing to show love in an service-oriented capacity. My ex was very gifts. I'm like, I don't care about gifts. I don't care about the thing that you bought me when I haven't seen you in 4 days because you've been locked up in your workshop building whatever it is that you're building. And you haven't even come out to give me a kiss or have dinner with me, and I'm all alone. And so I think one of the downfalls that I see men make more than anything is that they think that the doing, well, like I take care of the kids, I bring home the bacon, I swept the floor, isn't that enough? And I say, well, what she says is she wants connection. So how are you fulfilling that? And it's again, going back to teaching people habits and behaviors that they haven't been taught, because whether it's their parents or a lot of people don't have siblings, so they're not used to thinking about others. They're kind of just used to just thinking about themselves, right? And so I think it's just a behavior change, and it's a tough one unless you have an accountability partner to remind you and to catch you when you're going back to the old ways of being. And so, yeah, you're right. Any marriage can work, and it just has to be two people who love each other enough to be willing to, first of all, accept each other just the way they are and just the way they're not, and not try to fix them and change them into someone else, but also just being so committed to being with this person and being their best friend and being their best, and they're being their cheerleader, that these bumps on the road don't feel like the be all end all. They're just like, hey, you know what? I know there's going to be bumps, but I got your back. You got mine. We're going to be okay. And that's really the experience I have with my husband. And he always just keeps reminding me that he's there for me, that he supports me, that he loves me. He doesn't even care what I do. He's like, you just make yourself happy. That's all I want you to. I just want you to be happy. And so we've just created this very appreciative and respectful relationship that is effortless, if I'm really honest about it. But it's effortless because we put in the effort every day. We water that plant 3 times a day even. And we're really honest about our own insecurities. We love being vulnerable with each other and sharing those parts of us that we're afraid to admit. And it's such a beautiful thing when you can connect on that level where you're like, I see myself in you and you see yourself in me, or, you know what I'm trying to say. But it's just like, we're the same.
When you are with the person you're supposed to be with, it's not supposed to be work. Now,